All right, how is it going? Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Um, I'm talking a little bit today about PDWs for EDC type purposes and kind of my thoughts on them, how I think people generally should think about the idea. So, for those of you who don't know, PDW, personal defense weapon, it can take on a few different forms. Particularly what I'm talking about is like the Flux Raider type PDW. So something that you can actually conceal on your person. Flux Raider basically takes a SIG 320 slide and puts a folding brace thing on there. It holds an extra mag. Look it up if you're interested. But here's my opinion on it. My PDW setup is this. Glock 47 with a light and a dot, spare mag. I can appendix carry this very comfortably, and I can shoot this gun very well. And what I'm kind of trying to get at here is I think most people are probably best off just getting really good with a handgun. And I don't think PDWs are a bad thing, and I see the benefit of them in some situations. And who's kidding who? A weapon that you can shoulder is generally going to be easier to shoot. Now, depending on the type of shooting you're doing, there are some cons to having a shoulder-fired weapon as well. When I am trying to shoot on the move with a rifle, I have a lot harder time actually keeping that dot on a target as I'm moving, whereas with a pistol I can float it with my arms and it's a lot easier to keep the gun on target while my legs and body are moving. So there is some different things to think about there, but generally speaking, people are going to be able to shoot a shouldered weapon better. However, I don't think that it's unreasonable to get good enough with a handgun that you don't really feel the need for that kind of bridge between a rifle and a pistol. So, for every person, that gap between their rifle performance and pistol performance is going to be different, mostly dependent on how much they train with a pistol. If you train a lot with a rifle, your pistol shooting isn't necessarily going to get a whole lot better from what I've seen. If you train a lot with a pistol, that tends to translate more than people think towards shooting a rifle. There's some other things and certain nuances about shooting a rifle that are a little bit different. But generally speaking, if you train a lot with a pistol, you're still probably going to be a little bit better with a rifle, especially in certain situations, with certain, target difficulties. But the more you train with that pistol, the more you're going to close that gap. So for myself, I just feel like that gap is close enough that I'm not super concerned about having a PDW for those kind of niche situations. I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on this, what you think about like the 365 Flux as a potential like EDC carry if you, for whatever reason, think you are going to need a rifle but can't carry one. I'd be curious to hear it. I haven't really shot a Flux. I know somebody who's got one, and I've kind of messed with it just a little bit. I haven't shot it. I'd be interested to. Maybe my opinion would change if I did, and I'm open to that possibility. But that's kind of my thoughts right now. So, considering the amount of money that those things cost too, like a Flux setup, from what I've heard, is a couple $1,000s to get all put together, and that's about what I spend on ammo in a year. So, and I'm not the best shooter in the world, but I am an M-class USPSA shooter, and if you can, become an M-class USPSA shooter with $2,000 worth of ammo a year, it kind of begs the question, is that maybe a better use of those, $2,000 than just getting a PDW? Thing is, I mean, it's always been the same in the gun industry. Like, people want to just be able to buy their way into a capability, and I honestly think that's a big part of the reason why, like, the truck gun thing is even a thing. Like, I don't keep a rifle in my vehicle, like, really ever. I keep this on my body, and that's all the gun that I feel like I'm gonna need, like, ever. Honestly, way more gun than I'm gonna need. I occasionally carry my shield as well, 8+1, just a little subcompact gun, and I don't feel unarmed or underarmed with that. Granted, if I was to be in a situation where I'm, having some kind of crazy shootout with, like, someone armed with a rifle, I would much rather have the Glock 47 than my little iron-sighted 8+1 shield. But all this to be said, like, yeah, I don't carry a rifle in my vehicle because I don't feel the need for one. I don't have a PDW because I don't feel the need for one. I think people like the idea of a PDW for the same reason that they kind of like the idea of, like, a truck gun, their rifle in their truck. I think people build kind of a false sense of security with that, and they think that if they're in some crazy situation, they're at church and somebody starts trying to shoot up the congregation, in their head, they're not pulling out their pistol and dealing with the problem. In their head, they're running out to the parking lot to grab their rifle and go back in and deal with things with their rifle. I don't like that mentality personally. I just want to have a tool on me that I am confident in. And for me, I'm very confident in my ability with a handgun. So that's just some food for thought. It may vary a little bit depending on who you are and what your ability is with a rifle or a pistol, but for me, that's kind of the way I think about it. And I've said this before about other things, but people make a big deal out of the price of ammo and then don't have any problem dropping money on other things. So if you're gonna spend $2,000 on a flux setup, be real with yourself. Are you gonna spend that much in ammo this year to train with? And if the answer is no, it might be something to think about. Personally, I'm not much of a gun buyer. I buy a gun a year, maybe, sometimes two, if I find good deals. But beyond that, and I don't spend a ton on the guns. I don't think I own a gun that's worth more than, I don't know. I mean, I think my Glock 47 is the most expensive handgun I've ever bought. I paid $525 for it. It's not true. I paid more for my Shadow Systems, but I sold that and traded it in for the Glock 34. That gun's not good. But the most expensive one I currently own is my Glock 47, $525. I guess my AR, between all the parts, might equal out to a little bit more than that. But my point is, I don't spend a ton on guns. I do spend quite a bit on ammo, probably more than most people do. So, and I'm not trying to sound cocky, but in some ways it shows. So, buy ammo, get good with something. Chances are you already have a gun that you can get very good with and get to a level of proficiency with that you're not going to feel the need for more firepower, more capability. So I would highly recommend most people just invest the money into themselves and their skills as a shooter. And dry fire too. Dry fire is free, so if you don't feel confident in your pistol skills, get good with some dry fire, invest money into ammo before you invest it into products that may or may not increase your level of performance. And tell me why I'm wrong. I'm curious to hear other people's opinions on this, but those are just kind of my thoughts. Yeah, hit me with the comments. I'm really curious to hear what other people think about this. Anyway, that's all. If you want some good PDW content, though, Brass Facts and Boondock Ballistician both have videos on the Fluxrator that I've watched and thought were pretty interesting. Brass Facts does a lot of PDW kind of content. He's a big fan of the idea. I don't know. I don't have enough experience with one to say definitively that they're always stupid, but just from my own perspective of how much of a gap there is in my pistol shooting versus my rifle shooting, I don't feel like it's a necessity. So anyway, that'll be it for today. Have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.